In this video, we're going to look at some general strategies that we can use to tackle riddles. They should really be your go-to as soon as you understand the question you are asked. And by scanning the list, you should be able to identify which one of these can be helpful for your specific case. I know you might struggle to see the application for many of these straight away, but bear with me, you will be rewarded. Some of these are inspired by a video from 3 Blue 1 Brown. In case you don't know the channel, I left a link in the description down below. You won't be disappointed. But I tried to make this list more applicable to riddles rather than mathematical problems. So, are you ready? The first two items in the list are very general. Number 1. Use the information contained in the text. As trivial as this may sound, this is indeed the most important item, particularly for two reasons. First, you can derive some fundamental implications from the text, and it's better to write them down, as sometimes they're so obvious you don't realize how useful they are. Second, sometimes the text introduces constraints, things like a triangle with all angles less than 90 degrees, or find the smallest integer such that. And you might wonder why the person who invented this riddle had to stress that all angles should be less than 90 degrees. Why can't it be exactly 90? And what happens if it is? And even just understanding why those constraints are there can trigger a deeper understanding of the problem. Number 2, start to develop an intuition of what is going on. The idea is to try and decompose the problem in smaller steps and understand specifically what is making it hard to solve. At this stage, we should give things name, write down numbers, mess with the problem, just to identify where we feel the need of a key intuition. Because what is common in many riddles is that they require one key intuition, that little step in reasoning that unlocks the solution. If we are able to somehow delimit the difficulty of the problem to this specific logical step, we can make sure we then focus 100% on that. Sometimes we miss the main point, identify the wrong obstacle and spend some time on the wrong path. But that's okay. As soon as we realize, we can always get back on track. Now we get into more specific items. Number 3, look for symmetries and invariants. An object is symmetrical if it doesn't change under a specific transformation. You have many types of symmetries. If the problem mentions a circle, you have rotational symmetry. If it is about red and blue dots, we have blue to red symmetry. The problem wouldn't change if we replaced all blue dots with red dots and vice versa. There are at least 2 reasons why it is important to consider symmetry. 1. It limits the possible configurations of the system, as under symmetry any other configuration would effectively be equivalent to the first. If I tell you about a circle with a dot on the circumference, I can fix the point where I want, as any other configuration would be equivalent under rotational symmetry. But what symmetry also does is to provide insights that can guide us to the key intuition and help us identifying the path to the solution. Similarly, invariants can also be helpful. These are things that do not change after an action is performed. If I tell you to pick an even number, and then add or subtract 1, whatever you prefer, then add or subtract 1 again, I can tell you you will end up with an even number. That is because parity, a number being even or odd, is preserved after 2 consecutive operations of summing or subtracting 1. So let's carefully look for symmetries and invariants when presented a riddle. Number 4. Solve a simpler version of the problem. Sometimes the key intuition we're looking for has nothing to do with the apparent numerical complexity of the problem, which is just confusing our mind. A way around this is to solve the problem with very small numbers, grasp the key intuition in this context, and extrapolate back to its original formulation. Whenever you hear a large number in a problem, that is a sign that we might be able to use this technique, just by reducing it to 3, 4, something that our mind can visualize. You will be impressed by how many riddles we will solve this way. Number 5. Try to find alternative formulation to the problem. Sometimes what clouds our vision is not quantitative, as seen in item 4, but qualitative. We might find that specific formulation too distracting, Or maybe we elaborate it in our brain in ways that give importance to the wrong things. This is when it can be helpful to just rephrase the problem in a way that is clearer for our mind. Number 6. Use pen and paper to sketch the problem. Humans are visually wired. Half of a brain is involved in visual processing. 70% of all our sensory receptors are in our eyes. Process a symbol and give meaning to it takes 1/4 of a second. We are also more persuaded by graphics and more likely to comprehend and remember things we see compared to what we read. Now, not taking advantage of all of this, especially as we're trying to push our brain to 100%, would just be crazy. We might have to erase or reshuffle things many times, but there won't be one single riddle we will solve without a sketch. Number 7. List the possibilities you have. This works particularly well for riddles that involve a game where you have to take actions and you only have a limited amount of choices. Even if it seems you have many of them, it is still worth starting to write them down. In the best case scenario, you will be able to pretty much straight away remove most of them, being left with a solution. But even if you're not that lucky, the reason you removed some of them can give you a hint on what to look for and where the key intuition might lie. Number 8. Learn from experience. These strategies are relatively straightforward to list down, but how to use them and when to choose one over the others is something that will become clearer and clearer the more riddles you solve. My piece of advice is to take a note of what you used and how each time you find the solution to a riddle. It will make things much easier for the following one. And here we go! Before you move to the second strategy video, which will look at more specific and technical tactics to solve our riddles, make sure you go through these 8 once again and that you understand the logic of each of them. Remember, they will be the backbone of our toolset. If you enjoyed this video and where this is going, make sure you press the like button. Subscribe to the channel to get notified when our next riddle is out, and I will see you in the next video. I am Yuri and this is RiddleBear, the channel that will help you develop riddle solving skills and be able to solve riddles you didn't think you were capable of.